You are welcome. Please, Caroline will take us through domestic violence and abuse. So I want to quickly go through Caroline Fayo. Caroline is a mother, a writer, is a teacher, a podcaster, a mentor, empowerment coach, and a counselor. So you see, today we have 3 counselors. Take advantage of it. Don't let them go without asking questions. You know, Caroline enjoys helping women overcome rejection. She has passion for supporting women fight against domestic violence and abuse. She also encourages women to break the cycle of failure, unfulfilled dreams, and to uncover their God-ordained purpose. Caroline has published 2 books. One is Boundary, and the other one is a Bloom of a Woman. It's a guide for men to help their women in their lives glow and flourish. Benji, you need to get one of these books. The books are available at Amazon. So she will talk about it later. So Sister Caroline, please take over and take us through the domestic violence and abuse.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister C. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. Of course, I do not take this for granted. It is an honor to be in the midst of my sisters and my brother. Benji, that was awesome. Thank you so much. You know, I have passion for things like this, and I'm always so happy when I see the men that have taken it upon themselves to try to better their own family and better the world at large, because I've come to realize that women go through lots of learning, just like what we are doing now, lots of seminar, lots of preparation, right from when a girl child is very young, but men do not have the same training, so to speak. So you have most of the men coming from dysfunctional families, and if you place a man of, say, 20 years and you place a woman of or a girl of 15, 16, 17, she already knows much more about relationships and marriages better than men. So this kind of brings problem. So thank you for educating us. That was awesome. Without wasting time, because much of our time have gone, so I just want to run through this. And I know that, you know, domestic violence and abuse is not something that we can finish in one day. It has to be an ongoing conversation that we have to keep on having, especially in our BEM community, the Black African minority community. We need to hear this. We need to keep on having this conversation, because there is that culture of silence. And like I said, why are women ashamed to talk about it? And you agree with me that domestic violence is a very sensitive topic. You know, when I was just to correct what Minister C said, I've only written 1 book, but I have another one coming very soon. So this is the Bloom of the Woman, a guide to help men to help their women or the women in their life to grow and flourish. So when I was in the process of writing this book, I asked some women about their life experiences, and it will be sad to realize that women are going through so much, but they are not saying anything. It was difficult to even like get some people to start the conversation, you know. And like I said, if you've not been in that situation, you don't understand. I remember when Osinachi died and people were just talking, oh, why didn't she leave? Why did she stay? Why? And I said, if you haven't been there, you won't understand it. Sometimes we feel it is so easy to walk away of a relationship or walk away from a marriage that you've spent, you know, years cultivating. It's not that easy, especially as well when you've got children involved. The woman begins to think about so many things. But yeah, let me not jump to that, but let me just tell us that this is intended to give you awareness and knowledge around domestic abuse, build confidence, and help empower you in the future. So the decision to either stay or walk away is entirely yours. So what is domestic abuse? So this is any incident or pattern of incident of controlling, coercive, or threatening behavior, violence or abuse between those age 16 or over who are or have been in an intimate relationship or have partners, and sometimes it could be from family members regardless of gender or sexuality. You know, sometimes you have in-laws being the one, you know, abusing the wife. So it's not only between intimate partners, so it could be among family members as well. And we have different types to be psychological, physical, sexual, financial, emotional, and lot other. But to look at it in a broader sense, domestic violence also involves violence against children, parent or elderly. Like I said, it's not just only between intimate relationship. Yeah. You've got children abusing their elderly parents, you know, taking things from them. Even some care homes also abuse the elderly, especially the vulnerable. So this is what we are talking about. But in this context, we will be looking more at the relationship between a man and a woman, or between, because same-sex couples, because they too, you know, engage in this. So it can assume multiple forms, including physical, verbal, emotional, economic, religious abuse, reproductive, or sexual abuse. It can range from subtle coercive forms to marital rapes and other physical abuse. Mr. Benji talked about acid throwing. These things are happening. Female genital mutilation. I'm sure that most of us may not or may not have heard about female genital mutilation, but this is prevalent in our culture. I know from where I am from, it is done. And, you know, I can say I've experienced it as well. So these are the various things that put girl children on into problems, which, you know, parents sometimes they allow these things because they don't have the kind of awareness that we have now. So children as victims of domestic abuse, it is made known now that even children go through domestic abuse, especially when they have seen or heard, you know, the various experiences their parents are going through. You see, sometimes when parents are quarreling, the children are there, they are watching, they hear these things, they see that hit mom, or they hear dad saying foul language or name calling, and they carry this into their adult life. And I've counseled somebody that she's always like, this, I'm having childhood trauma, I can't come out of it. Each time she makes a step, she finds herself, you know, falling back again. Why? Because of childhood trauma. The things she saw her dad did to her mom are still engraved in her mind. So what are the signs of domestic abuse? And we have emotional abuse. So these are the questions, like Mr. Ben to say, these are the questions you have to answer. So does your partner or former partner belittles you or put you down, blame you for the abuse or argument, deny that abuse is happening or play it down? And you've got some partners that do that, you know, they blame you for everything. They just play the blame game. It is your fault. And if you did not do this, I wouldn't have done that. If you had saved me my food early or warmer, you know, I wouldn't have hit you. If you had not spoken while I was talking, I wouldn't have done this. And there have also been situations where, you know, sometimes they said, oh, when he's talking, oh, walk away. There have been situations where the woman walked away and the man pulled her back. I've had a client tell me that I just wanted to walk away so that it will not degenerate into something else. And the man pulled her back and said, you're walking away from me. That is disrespectful. So these things happen. So threat or intimidation. Some partners use threat or intimidation. You know, they tell you, oh, I'm going to kill you, and you may think it's a joke, but these things have actually happened. They have been partners killing their victims. So he says, I'm going to kill you, destroy property. You know, they give you this kind of very threatening look. And sometimes they even show you the weapon. If you talk or if you want to leave, this is what I'm going to do to you. And you know, most times when I look at this domestic abuse, I find out that most times physical abuse, it can be seen, and people can easily, you know, help you because they've seen you either having a black eye or you've got some burns and things like that. But the one that people cannot see, which is even more dangerous, are the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse, those ones that messed up with your mental health, which nobody can see, nobody, understands it. Even when you try to explain it to people, they just push it aside and think, oh, you're not the only person. No, your marriage can't be that bad. There are other marriages that are even worse than your own. They try to play these things down. So if your partner is choking you, hitting you, spitting on you, all this slapping you, they are all physical form of abuse. And I tell women, I said, if you are in a relationship and he slaps you once, there is that tendency that is going to do it again, and this time around it may even be worse. And that is why the new domestic abuse definition says, even if it's a single act, so you've got to take action against it, because if he has done it the first time and he gets away with it, he's going to do even worse thing. So sexual abuse has to do with, does your partner or former partner touch you in a way you don't like? Do they ask you to do demeaning things? Do they pester you for sex even when you don't consent to it? They want you to do it. Do they hurt you when you're having sex, or do they even withdraw sex from you? Because some people can use withdrawal of sex just to punish the other person and bring the person to submission. And what were we looking at? Remember, when I started this slide, I liked controlling, coercive, threatening behavior. So what are those controlling behaviors? Because controlling behavior occurs when a person does anything designed to make a person subordinate or dependent by isolating them from sources of support. So what they try to do just to control you, they isolate you from source of support. You've got couples, there was this friend of mine I happened to meet recently. They were in London, but because the husband thought, oh, she's going wild, I brought her and blah, blah, blah. So he decided to take her to the village, so to speak, so that she will lose that contact and not, grow out of wings, according to him. So not knowing that even taking her to the next city was going to be something good, because she mingled with people, and that was a kind of liberation for her. So sometimes they do that. As soon as you want to settle in one place, they uproot you and take you to another place, even without your consent, so that you don't get that support, so that you don't get people that can help you. Then they exploit their resources and capability for their own personal gain. I've read stories of women that work and it's the man that is collecting the salary. The woman knows nothing about the salary. The man owns the account. All the woman does is work, and when it's time, he just pays for a TP and said, oh, use this for your transport. And the man does every other thing with the money, and the woman doesn't have any idea about what is happening. He won't explain, he doesn't show her anything. So all this is just to control the woman. Then there is this making her dependent on him. So another one is just making the woman to be dependent. Oh, stopping her, you can't work, you've got to stay at home. This is just so that she doesn't get that financial independence to be able to be her own person. So what does all these things entail? It simply is just power and control. He wants to show who is in charge. Men are dominant. They are like, I'm the man, you are the woman. So everything plays down to power and control. And what does he use? Like we said, he uses intimidation, make her afraid, smash things, display weapons, destroy properties. And in some people that have pets, destroy pets, use emotional abuse, use emotional blackmail, and sometimes he's playing mind games. Men knows how to play mind games with us. It's just telling you, oh, you're being jealous for nothing. Oh, it's not what you saw. Oh, it is something else, and tries to play it down. And like Minister C said, if you don't communicate, if you think those problems will go away without talking about it, you're joking. Because I wrote in my book, I said most times, things happen in relationship, and we women, we bring it out. We expect to iron it out, to talk about it, and you sweep it under the carpet. We may leave you, but that doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. No, it hasn't. What it does is it builds it up, it brings resentment, it brings bitterness. The day it is going to explode, you won't even believe it was that little thing. But if you had talked about it, you know, something would have been done about it. So you use this isolation. We've talked about that denial, blame game. You know, we've talked about that it denies a lot of things. It just makes sure that, you know, she takes responsibility for everything. You know, sometimes you find yourself apologizing for what you know deep down inside of you. You know it wasn't your fault, but because it's playing down on your imagination, you find yourself saying, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't that way, it won't happen again. Deep down, you know it. So these are various ways that men used to manipulate and, you know, get out of the situation. But it's not just men that does that. Women do that as well, because domestic violence, there have been men too that have been violated. Then another one, he uses male privilege. Oh, I'm the man, you're the woman. He starts, you know, identifying gender role. He tells you you've got to be submissive, and the Bible even preach it. And you know, some men will go to preach it for you. Read Ephesians chapter 5 verse 21 and tells you, oh, you've got to be submissive. The Bible says, woman, you know that. But they forget that before they get to 21 or 25, that has to do with the woman, 21 is there, which it says, submitting yourself one to another in the fear of God. So you've got to submit yourself one to another. It's not just the woman submitting. As the man, you've got to submit. And another thing, even before it gets to that 25, it says, husband, love your wife as God loves the church, or as Christ loves the church. So if you love your wife as Christ loved the church, I think by the time we get to respect your husband or be submissive, we would have settled the issue. So another one is economic abuse. Most men do that. They ensure that their wife doesn't have anything. They always want her to say, please, 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 give me, give me, give me, even when they know that, you know, she should have these things. To give your wife upkeep shouldn't be a problem, but some men will still not give their wife upkeep. Some men go to the extent of being the one going to the shop. They go to the shop, they buy everything. At the end of the day, the woman doesn't have any money on her because daddy does everything. And you know what this does is that the children are watching, because children also comes to the woman and say, buy. And she says, oh, I can't afford it. And they look at the woman like she's not doing anything. So it's impacting on the children as well, because they see it as daddy buys everything, mommy doesn't buy anything, not knowing that daddy is the one with the key to the bank account. So all this brings us to cycle of abuse. You know, abuse doesn't just happen one day. It is a cycle. And most times when you don't realize this cycle, you keep going over and over in it. And some people have been in this abuse for years. You know, the statistics shows that some women have been in an abusive relationship from 2 to 10 years and they are there. So what happens? Why are they there? Because at some point in time, they have this honeymoon phase where everything is, you know, so good. Everybody is so at ease. People are enjoying. The man says, I love you. He buys a flower. He does all those nice things. After that, there is a little bit of incident and tension start building. So from honeymoon phase, they get to tension building phase where the woman starts wondering, what have I done wrong? You know, as a woman, you shouldn't even be in a position where you want to speak to your husband, but you're already thinking of 10 ways that you can speak to him so that he doesn't get irritated. Your mind is already going through a lot of ways to take and calm him down. So they get to this tension building phase. The woman is wondering, what have I done wrong? Or how do I stop him so that, you know, things doesn't get out of hand? Then before she knows it, there is an explosion. And when there is an explosion, it could regenerate into hitting, biting, choking, and all the other forms, names calling, you know, bringing her down, body shaming, telling her you're too fat, you're too short, you're so dumb. Why did I even marry you? You know, all those things. And after that, there is the reconciliation. The man comes and is apologizing, is pleading, is begging. I had a boyfriend like that when I was in my university days. And, you know, when it comes to that period, they are not ashamed to say it. He didn't even mind kneeling down and apologizing on the road, just causing that sin. And, you know, the student, they'll come, hey, Carol, forgive. and you forgive, and the next thing, it won't be up to a month, you're fighting again. So at a point, I had to tell myself, I say, you know what, I can't deal with that. And you know, the sad thing or the funny thing is, once an abuser, it's difficult for them to change. Could you imagine in my university days in 2000, should I say 6? Yeah, I finished 2006. I still not met him, we met on internet, and we were still fighting. It was still like, you're too pompous, you're too proud. I'm like, you've never changed. I just blocked him. So that is what abusers is difficult for them to change. You may think, oh, they will change, but sometimes some people may change, but sometimes it's really, really difficult for them to change. So that brings us to barrier to leaving an abusive relationship. People ask, why do they stay? Why don't you leave? Why don't you leave? So this to leave an abusive relationship is not that easy. The answer is not simple. It is important to recognize understand that there are many barriers to leaving an abusive relationship. Leaving is often dangerous, and there are many factors a victim must consider before leaving. What are those things she must consider? 1, embarrassment, shame, guilt. The victim feels it is his or her fault that this is happening. You can imagine when you had your wedding, there was a large crowd, people were there, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to do it again. Or people look at you from the outside, they see you as good couples, they see you as being compatible from outside, but inwardly at home, you know that, things are not well. So you're almost embarrassed to say it to your friends and say, oh, this is what I'm going through. Then the cultural and religious reasons, of course, where we are from, there are some places where you can't leave your marriage like that. Somebody told me, she said, I'm an Edo girl, we are not allowed to leave our marriage. So you see, that kind of, even though she's in an abusive relationship, she can't leave that marriage. She just have to be there because of the cultural barrier. Then religion, we would tell you that divorce is not an option if you are a Christian. We tell you that Jesus hates divorce, and whatever God hates, you have to hate it as a child of God. So this kind of keep people stuck in that relationship. As much as they will want to go away to leave that relationship, they don't want to. But sometimes, you can just separate from the abuser and just give it some time to cool off and see if you can work things together. Then another one is financial dependence. Most women, because we've got children, we don't have that time to go into things that will give us money or make us to be financially independent. Immigration statutes and language barrier. Of course, if you are in this part of the world, the Western world, you will realize that immigration statutes is very important, especially if it was your spouse that brought you here. If he doesn't renew your papers, you can't do it. It just has to be him doing it. And most times, because your spouse knows that he's got that upper hand, they just decide not to do it. And because they won't do it, you just have to stick with them until you get it done. Because if you don't get it, they will kick you out. So nobody wants that, especially when you look at back home where we've come from, where things are not so as it should be. You will want to stick with your abuser because of that. Then abuser threatens to harm you or harm the children. That will make people to stay. And some people don't even have where to go. So that makes them stay as well. And some people stay because of their children. They've got children, they want the family to be together, and every other ones that follow. And some people don't even know where to access help from. So that makes them stay as well. So why are women ashamed to talk about it? Why? Why don't we want to talk about it? It is sensitive. We don't want people to know. Some people say, I don't want to bother you. It's my burden. It's my cross. I've got to carry it. I don't want another person to hear. I just want my privacy. And some people, because if they say it, they're gonna blame them, victim blaming. Why did you do it? If you did not talk in a certain way, he wouldn't have abused you, or she wouldn't have done it. If you did not dress in a certain way, you wouldn't have been raped. They just blame you for it. And this has caused many women not to, come out or speak out. And sometimes the stigma of even knowing that, you're going through abuse, it's also there. Then when you finally come out, you're trying to tell people, and you have somebody asking you, why didn't you speak sooner? Instead of giving you the help you need, they are asking you, why didn't you speak sooner? And once somebody once said, now you can't hide your problem, you've got to say it to 10 people. And in my mind, I'm already thinking, when it comes to marriage, they tell you, no, you can't take your problems outside. How many people heard that on their wedding day? They say you've got to, of course, you've got to solve your problems, two of you, you don't take it out. So that makes people to, just bottle it up. They don't want to take it out, because when you take your problem out, they see you as, spreading your dirty laundries outside, rather than seeing it as if you're needing help or needing support. They see it as a way of spreading your dirty laundries, and most people don't want to spread their dirty laundries outside. And another thing, there is need, especially for us women, there is need for us. We try to cover it up. We want to cover our spouse because we know that there is a certain respect they give them, maybe amongst their peers or in the family. We know if we tell our family members, they're gonna bring them down. The way they will look at your spouse is different from when you married your spouse. So because of that, you're like, no, I don't want to shame this man. I just want, let me just, patch it and just manage it, even at your own expense. So I want to tell every woman here that have gone through abuse that abuse is not your fault. Abusive partners and sometimes family, friends, and the society wants you to believe that it is your fault. No, it's not your fault. Each partner has control over their action. One partner choosing to be abusive is never the victim's fault. And I tell people, I say, Amos 3:3 says, can two walk together except they agree? So for a marriage to stick together, the two people have to work together. And when one person is committed to building and the other one is committed to tearing it apart, then it can't work, no matter how much you try it. And you see, when it comes to character, when it comes to attitude, if people don't take ownership by themselves, you can't pray it out. You can't pray somebody into a good partner or into a good character. It has to be a conscious effort by the person that is abusive. So in a healthy relationship, each partner should be able to communicate their feelings without resulting to violence or abuse of any kind. So overcoming guilt and shame. How can you overcome your guilt and shame? I know Mr. Benji talked about, meditation, reaching out to God, looking within you. So you've got to assess, ask yourself question, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? Where is my fault? What would I have done differently? This will help you assess and reflect on the situation and see what needs to be done. So assess the seriousness of the situation or your action. And sometimes, what you may consider to be very bad, you think, oh, it cannot be solved. If you tell it to another person, you realize that it is just nothing, it's just something simple. So another thing is break the silence. Don't keep silence. I have a podcast. I'm a podcaster as well. It's on Anchor FM. I also have it on Spotify and other platforms. So I've talked about don't keep silent. Don't keep silent. Why? Because no matter what you're going through, you're not the only person. There are countless people going through the same thing you're going through. And a problem shared is half solved. So when you tell your problem to somebody, you're in a way relieving yourself of that burden, of that anxiety, depression, because you're able to talk instead of just bottling it up. Bottling things up has killed so many people because they went into depression without knowing. And some people, that begins to speak to their mind. They have mental health issues that they start thinking of committing suicide. So don't keep silent. And the last one is forgive yourself. I know the previous speaker talked about forgiving yourself. You have to forgive yourself. Learn to forgive yourself. When you forgive yourself, then you'll be able to forgive the next person. Most times we pour into others without even taking time to also work on ourselves. I know Benji talked about sometimes it could be us that is the problem. So you really need to work on yourself. You need God to break you and show things to you so that you begin to assess those situations and see. So boundaries. Most times I tell people that when you don't even know yourself, you can't even create boundaries. But boundaries are very important. So boundaries are the emotional and physical space that we place between ourselves and others. Boundaries make it possible for us to separate our own thoughts and feelings from those of others and take responsibility for what we think, feel, or do. So boundary is very important in any relationship, be it intimate, be it amongst your friends, because if you don't have boundaries, people are going to take advantage of you. And like the previous speaker said, when we are in this courtship phase, we don't set boundaries. We've got these butterflies in our stomach. You know, we are so loving. Everything is going smoothly. Whatever the man says is yes, I agree. Whatever the woman says is yes. So we don't even set boundaries. We don't take time to ask those vital questions. Where will we stay? How many children will we have? How much are you earning? You know, all those things that should have brought about effective communication. We don't find time, or we don't have time to look at them. We are busy saying, I love you, he loves me, we go here, we eat, and that is it. But when we now get into the marriage proper, we realize that there are a lot of things we should have known, which we did not know. And this brings problem. So boundaries are those things that will help us. But to set boundaries, healthy boundaries, you've got to know yourself, you've got to know your value, you've got to know your word, you've got to know what you can take. So boundaries are the limits we set in relationship that allow us to protect ourselves. They let those around us know what is acceptable. You know, they let them know what is acceptable and not acceptable to us. So if you don't tell a man, oh, if you cheat, this is what is going to happen to this relationship, he doesn't know it. He goes out, he cheats, and he thinks it's okay, probably because he's from a polygamous home or he saw his father doing it. Likewise, vice versa. If you don't even tell a woman, you know, you cannot now, you've got to keep the house clean and the things you like and set the boundaries. She doesn't know it. She wants to do her own thing, but boundaries make people to know what is acceptable. Okay, if you read my text messages, I don't like it. I don't want you to. Or okay, we can take time to read each other's text messages. There shouldn't be anything that is secrecy. We should be open to each other because we are in a relationship, or because it is marriage, we have to be open to each other. So you set this boundary. You can read my text, I can read your text. Oh, we put our money, you know, separately or together, as the case may be, as it is applicable to your family. So these are the things we need to do to set these healthy boundaries. We can talk about things, because in setting boundaries, you talk about issues. We can talk about issues. When this happens, what do we do? How do we resolve these issues? And you know, it's men, I don't know, sometimes you're talking about setting boundaries and you're telling the man this is the boundary. He doesn't want to follow it, you know, so it makes it difficult. But then you can allow them a little. If they default, you call the attention. Default the first time, you call the attention. The next time, you have to be very strict and say, if you do this again, this is what is going to happen. And when you give your consequences, please follow it through, because when you don't follow it through, next time when you call his attention to the boundary, he's going to flag it, because he knows that nothing is going to happen. So we need boundaries. So impact of domestic abuse. Are there impact of domestic abuse? Oh yes, there are lots of impact of domestic abuse. So violence against women can cause long-term or short-term mental health problems. So violence and abuse affect not just the woman involved, it affects the children, in fact, it affects families and communities. So like I said, they are long-term, they are short-term. Some people have been out of work because they cannot concentrate. Some people are in the mental homes. In fact, I was told that we have large number of our African women in the mental homes because of this thing we are talking about, domestic violence. They can't talk about it, and they are bottling it up, and they start having psychosis, you know, schizophrenia. They just keep hearing things in their brain because they do not talk about it. And I just want to congratulate everyone that has been here, because things like this gives you the awareness. It makes you to know what to do if you are in this situation, though we pray against it. So there can be bruises, cuts, broken bones. People are in the hospital, hospitalized because of domestic abuse. How about the children? So children suffer sleeplessness. You find a child that can't sleep. Why? Because the child is constantly hearing their parents arguing or fighting or breaking things, or that threatening look by the dad or the mom. And sometimes these children, they run to hide. You know, they can't even express it. They can't say it in school. And for some other people that have been unlucky, their children are being discovered in school by social services, and they take the children away, and you end up losing your children. So these things affect the children as well. It brings down their self-esteem. They start seeing themselves as being inferior to others. Some children feel that they are the cause. They think, oh, they are the cause why daddy and mommy are quarreling, not knowing it is not their fault. And some also have low grades, poor sleeping habit, childhood trauma. I told you of that, my friend, that till today, she still have the childhood trauma. You know, when you coach her, when you mentor her, you talk to her, she's okay, she's up, you leave her for some time, she's down again. And these are the things she passed through as a child. So for adults, you've got anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, you've got unwanted pregnancy, it has brought STDs and the rest of them that I've listed. So these are some of the effects, both the long-term and the short-term effects of domestic violence. Is there a way out? Of course, there is a way out. Speak out. That is what I want to encourage everybody. Speak out. Speak out. You can look at people's life. There are people in your circle of friends or in the church or in your community which you look up to. There are couples that have done it. They've been there. They've tested. You can attest that, you know, they've been through rocky situation and they can advise you. Speak out. It could be a friend. It could, you know, there are people, you speak out, you can tell your GP, they could point you to the right sources or where to go. But you need to speak out. Don't be silent. Don't keep silent. Speak out. If you don't speak out, then you are helping the abuser, because when you speak out, it can be called to order. When you speak out, they can arrange a meeting. When you speak out, they can arrange counseling for you. Probably you didn't have it in your mind to go for counseling, but somebody could easily tell you, why not go for counseling or why not go for therapy? And to tell you the truth, therapy is not easy, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it is good, because sometimes, you know, when you're going through abuse, you don't even realize these things until you start going for therapy or for counseling. Then you begin to see those emotions that you have pushed somewhere, they begin to come out, and you just find yourself, you need that healing. And like I said earlier, you need to forgive yourself, because when you don't forgive yourself, that healing is not complete. When you forgive yourself, you have the total healing that you need. You must have a plan. Have a plan. What do you want? Do you want to stay? Do you want to leave? If you want to leave, you still need to have a plan, because sometimes if you don't have a plan and execute it well, you end up putting yourself in more problem, because as soon as your abuser knows you want to leave, of course, he's bound to do something, or she's bound to do something. You've had people saying, if you leave me, I'll commit suicide. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. And sometimes they know you want to leave, and they just burn you, or they kill you, or they throw acid on you, because they don't want you to leave. They know that they are the abusers, but at the same time, they still want to have that control over you. Don't forget, it is power and control. So they want to control you still. And sometimes even when you've left, they still want to control you from where they are. So keep evidence, keep a diary of events, journal, that will help. So write down threats, if there are pictures, if there are text messages, phone calls, write them down. Keep a journal of things that is happening. Should you need to go to the police and should they need this information, you'll be able to have it handy. Write the dates and everything, write threat messages, seek the help of other support groups. So we've got support groups, you've got the IDAS, you've got the Women's Aid, you've got the Samaritan. Above all, reach out to God. There is nothing God cannot do, if not for anything, for your inner peace. So you need to go to God in prayer. I know most times they tell women, oh, you've got to pray, you haven't prayed enough. Oh, you've got to watch War Room. Oh, look at, you know, they tell you all those things. Go watch War Room, go and pray, go pour anointing oil, you know, sanctify his clothes. Anoint his food. You You hear all these things, and you know, it's funny, but then women do all these things and abuse still persists. And you begin to ask yourself, does it mean I don't pray enough, or does it mean I'm not doing enough? And it just kind of bring you down and just break you, because if you are praying and it is like this, you begin to wonder, so what if I wasn't even praying? So let's do the practical. As much as we want to pray, please, let's have the support we need. So you can get support from Women's Aid. They have the directories of all the domestic violence support across UK, or you can Google them if you're not in Nigeria. So you have the National Domestic Abuse Helpline, you have victim support. You can also download apps on your phone. So there is this app called the Bright Sky. You can download it on your phone. If you're in an abusive relationship, you can simply send a message or report. Then there is space and safe space for people. And if you go to some hotels, some bar, some cafes, they've got a code that you can easily tell the bartender, and they will know immediately that you're in trouble, and they'll try to get you out of the situation. Say, for instance, if you went to a pub and you know you don't like what your partner is doing, if you walk to the bartender, there's something you can say, and you will know, arrange a taxi for you or get the person out of the situation. So you need to know this code. If you need the code, please send me a text personally. So we've got the men's advice line as well. So for men that are going through domestic violence, there is advice line for them. So get a court order to protect you and your children if you are a victim of domestic violence. You can equally get a non-molestation order. This order, you don't even need to go to the police. You can do it online or by email or by post. This order just gives you a kind of breathing space, because it will stop the abuser or the perpetrator from coming close to you for some days, months. So, but after that, you want to progress things along. So I included be empowered. You see, in all these things we have said, if you are empowered, you know, sometimes you'll be able to work on yourself rather than look at the abuser. So how can you be empowered so that whatever the abuser is doing, you can bounce back? Remember, we talked about bouncing back. So, and bouncing forward, how can you be empowered? You have to invest in yourself. Take your personal development to be very serious. The book I wrote came out of struggles. It was when I was struggling that I was writing my book. It was when I was struggling that I got into writing poem. The poem did not just start. It was struggles and trials that made me start writing poem. And today I'm happy I'm a poet. So you can do that. Invest in yourself. Read books. Go for seminars like what you're doing. It is very, very liberating, because when you hear these things, you realize that you're not alone, that there are other people that have been there, that they've done it, they've come out of it on the other side, and they are better. And you know what? You can use your book. You can sell your book. You can make money out of, you know, an ugly situation. Remember J.K. Rowling? It was when she was divorced that she sat down and began to write the Harry Potter story. And now today she's a billionaire, you know. So you can turn an ugly situation into something positive. And there's a quote I like saying, that the best reward to a problem is for you to better yourself. So you just get better at yourself. That is how you can tell an abusive person, you know what, whatever you did not have any effect on me, because you're moving forward, you're progressing. So turn your journal into a book. Get a job if you do not have one. Become financially independent, because when you're financially independent, you yourself, you feel happy, you'll be proud of yourself. You will have something to channel that energy into, where you can focus rather than focusing on whoever your abuser is. So be empowered, empower yourself, identify your passion, pursue it, follow your passion. What makes you happy? Where is that safe place you can be? Where can you draw strength from? So channel your energy there and be productive. When you're productive, you don't have time to look at all these things. They become the things of the past. And when you're productive, when you've got the money, when you can do things on your own, you can easily, you know, change the trajectory of your life. So remember, you always have the right to be treated with respect and make your own decisions. Do what is right for you. Don't do it for anybody. Do what is right for you. And I close this by saying, finally, brethren and brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or worthy of praise, think about all such things. And that is in Philippians chapter 4, verse 9. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Caroline. Thank you for the information, the experience, the education. You have said so much, and I trust God that we have taken everything in. Excellent. Thank you. What I put on was beware of the abuser. I took that one. Beware of the abuser, because the abuser cannot change. They cannot change, but you can. You can live. You can seek help. You can seek support. And when you are living, put a plan in place. Don't just pick your bag and leave, because you might be tracing your phone. Get help, get support. To be frank, in London, in this UK, there's so much places that you can get support from violence and abuse. And I believe Sister Caroline has mentioned so much. Now, there's something else that the government has also released. We know that it says that 1 in 4 women always suffer domestic abuse, and some are killed. And so these days, there's simple signs that you can do. For instance, you need help, but you cannot talk in your home. When you call and you try to pretend you are making a conversation, do the sign. And you just do like you are talking, but you just use your sign like this. And the person, when they are aware of it, they'll know that you are calling for help. So ladies, let's understand these signs. When you are talking to someone and they do this with you, know that they are giving you a sign so that you can help them by either you call the police or you help them to plan an escape. So
I think you're too close, so we can't see the sign properly.
You can't see it.
Okay, if you bring your hand down a bit. Yes, now we can see.
So the sign is this. So if the person is talking to you and is doing this, is trying to give you a sign that she's suffering, there's an abuse going on. A plan with it, or you call the police if it's an emergency. Or there's another one is this. If the person is talking to you and he's doing this, know that there's an abuse going on. And so help. A friend or family is going through abuse. What we normally do is we tend to ignore them. You know, even though we can see the signs, yes, sometimes you can see the bruises, but we ignore these signs. We ask, how are you doing? The person will say, oh, I'm fine. And then we just leave them. But you know, she's not fine. There's something going on. Take time and speak to the person. When sometimes you get the help for them, but within some time they'll run back. Why? Because they don't have that capability, the mental capability to say that I can take care of myself. And that is why we need to help them. We need to support them. Let's not be ignorant. That is not the time we will criticize. Oh, you should have stayed. Your mom said you stay and you didn't stay and you are running away. That is the time they need support. Please, let's support people that are going through this domestic violence and abuse. I believe that this lady, Sinachi, if the people that had her story were able to intervene and speak out, probably she will not die and she'll be living by now. But please, you have a ministry, educate the people in the church. You know, you have a group, educate them. It's something that we need to spread the news. It is us, the women, that can spread the news. If we don't, the women will be dying every day and will affect the children, to affect the whole family as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we sign off, it's okay. You can put my number in the chat, or I can put it myself. And in case
please put it yourself.
Anyone want to contact me, they are always welcome to do that.
Yeah, please kindly put it there, and Sister Carol, kindly put your details there so that anyone that is here can contact you. The ministers, if you need them, you can contact them as well, so that they can come to the event and then speak to other people as well, please. And you want to ask a question, there's something that you want to understand, please ask the question or put it in the chat, and then we will read it out, please. Okay.
I wanted to say thank you to Master Benji and to Sister Caroline. Very good presentation. It's just to encourage us, especially most of us on here are in ministry. You know, that's something I've witnessed on several occasions. And sometimes we've gotten into trouble, even as a church, where you've tried to encourage, especially the women. Again, you know, men are going through this, but women are going through it. And it's the women who seem to be more vulnerable. So you find yourself in a place where you've told the woman to leave, then after, go to a safe place, for example, then after they reunite back, you as the church, you become the enemy. So at the point we are saying to us, say, you know what, let's become the enemy for a good reason. Because we don't want that family separated. We don't want none of those things. But sometimes we have to deal with the situation. Not by, yes, we pray, but be separated while you're praying. If there's any form of violence involved, we can't cover it as a church. You have in church where you have the leaders, the deacons, they are beating their wives. This is not a story. I've witnessed some among some of my friendship circles, and the church is covering it. We need to refrain from those things. If we know amongst us that these things are happening in our gatherings, you know, let's be encouraged. Let's not support it. Let's speak. If the church has to be empty, let it be empty. We can't be covering such stuff and you know, under the disguise of so much.
Let's speak up, ladies. Let's speak up. If you know somebody and the person is not even speaking up, you can speak for that person so that the person can get help. Don't wait till the person is killed, then you will come and say, "Oh, I know. Oh, she told me this and she told me that." It will be too late. Let's speak up and let's talk about it in our churches, in our events. Let's do more domestic violence and abuse events so that we can educate more of the women. As well as we will do a men's one so that the men will also be educated, you know, stop the abuse of the women. Thank you.
I was going to say, and Sister Caroline, thank you for, you talked about the men later on, because there are men who are equally going through, you know, abuse. Again, it's because the men don't speak. It's just a general thing, because it's always women, and it's a bit unfortunate that the countries in which we're living in, if you look at it, it's more women and child friendly. It's a changing now. There is a place for the men. So there are lots of men going through emotional and still, you know, physical abuse. Again, we want to pray that they will come out.
The first person I went to for advice as a nurse, and I couldn't tell anybody else, but the first person I asked for advice, the person went, "If he hits you, can't you hit him back?" And I was pregnant. I would have been in my grave by now if I have done that person, listen to that person's advice. So I think when people go through domestic violence, it's very important that they find advice from the right source that will help.
Thank you. So, as Sister Comfort said, find the advice from the right source. Because a lot of people have listened to people that have no experience in that. They don't know anything. So they just use their feelings and emotions. As Benji said, if you are talking to somebody who is already broken, It will just give you all this negative words for you to use. But if you go to someone who is more experienced, then they can direct you and advise you and be able to get come out from that place or feel safe and be comforted. So let's seek advice from the right places. The moment it started, you see the sign. Just take action. Speak to somebody straight away and get advice. Don't be afraid, because one of the things we are more afraid is, oh, if I speak to this person, what is he going to say? Is he going to talk about me to another person? Let's have a bit of trust on one another, because that is what women, we don't have. We don't trust one another. We don't trust each other. Even if we are in the same group, we don't trust each other. So we don't talk about the issues that we are helping. So from the onset, when the abuse starts, seek help, because maybe it will not escalate if you start from straight away and get help. Maybe the man himself needs help. You know, some men are suffering, I have a childhood trauma. So they bring it into the relationship. Just as women also, we go through childhood trauma, just as Sister Caroline and Benji said, you know, so especially African, we carry the trauma into relationship. So let's beware of these things and take action as soon as the signs and the red flag shows up. Thank you. Anybody else, please? No.
Hello.
One.
Hello.
Okay, Pastor Helen.
Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you, sister.
So sorry for just tuning in. There was a bit of misunderstanding with my timing.
That's okay.
All right. I just want to, I wish I could show my face. I was not prepared to show my face. I just want to do 2 points. Somebody has mentioned it before. One, abuse is always anchored to something. When abuse is going on, this one of the strengths of abuse is secrecy. You don't help an abuser to hide whatever they are doing to you. Speak out. As long as you keep it secret within you and the person, it will go longer and you'll be enabling it. You must speak out. 2, you must look for professionals. I know that somebody said that sometimes we don't trust one another. In a sensitive situation like this, before you start trusting somebody, even if that person is your best friend, sometimes it's difficult. You can share your pain a bit with close friends so that they can pray with you, so that they can encourage you, so that they can give you strength and they support you. But to be able to express yourself deeply in a way that you'll be counseled, I think that person needs to speak to professional. One thing about professional is that, one, professional has been trained to keep your secret between you and them. So they will not be able. Then, 2, professionals themselves have been counseled during their training to be able to deal with their own personal pain. Sometimes you can be speaking to somebody who has gone through what you have gone through, and they will advise you based on their pain, the pain that they are still carrying. That's why somebody said, if he hit you, hit back. Some will say, okay, if it's infidelity, why can't you do it? Why can't you to go out and do it? Because that person has been in your shoe before. That is how that person dealt with it. And then if you do that, you are complicating the issue. And then when you go to pastors, that religious leader that doesn't have the skill of counseling, they will tell you to pray in the place where the person needs to be counseled. I'm not saying prayer is not good.
Yes.
But we have spiritual aspects of our lives as human beings, and we also have a functional aspect of our lives. If I'm going through emotional pain, you are praying for me. Also, you need to deal with me emotionally. It's like if I'm hungry and you are praying for me, you also need to feed me. Otherwise, that hunger will not stop. So you have to speak to professionals that can deal with your case, not because of how they are feeling, but how they listen and question you and be able to address it. So that is my contribution.
Thank you, Pastor Helen. So don't keep silence. Don't keep silent. Speak to a professional. And luckily today we have professional counselors in the house, Caroline and Benji. So they put their details in the chat. Copy the details, and if you have any issue, get in touch with them. You can also get in touch with me.
Thank you all, and God bless you. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. Marriage relationships that breaks up, you will not be able to manage your stress, feeling lost and confused, feeling undervalued, your low self-esteem, your confidence goes down, you felt that you've been taken advantage on, you fall into depression. So I encourage you, when you go into this, I know we Africans, especially blacks, we don't like going to counseling. We hate counseling. But I encourage you, once in a while, check in with a counselor. Check in with a counselor. Myself, I'm a counselor. Sister Caroline is a counselor. Benji is a counselor. We have a lot of counselors in our midst. So please take advantage. And when you are going through these events, make sure you get a counselor. Make sure you speak to the professional. Thank you, and God bless you all. Women together, we stand strong.